Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to The Social Circus, where every week we dive into a variety of topics covering social media, mindset, and how to run your business. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Social Circus. I'm your host, Sarah Thompson, and I'm here each and every week, but so often I bring in some wonderful guests to have really juicy conversations. And today I'm really excited to have the wonderful Sam Dhu here with me to have a very juicy chat. Hey, Sam.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I feel like we tried to plan this for like 2 years and it's finally happening.
I know we have. So Sam has been on my radar since I started my podcast 100 and something episodes ago. And she's a very busy lady with her little babies and children and things. So Sam, for all of my lovely listeners, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a psychotherapist, a mental health social worker. I provide supervision to social workers and coaches, and I also call myself a facilitator of permission. I do a bit of a blend of mentorship and coaching, and obviously my psychotherapy skills kind of come in there as well. So it's a really mixed bag in terms of what I do. And I am a massive advocate for women getting to be soft and successful, and being really radically kind and compassionate to themselves on the road to business growth, because business, I don't think anyone would argue that business isn't challenging. And I think that we deserve to treat ourselves like with so much love and kindness as we navigate those challenges.
Well, I love that introduction.
Mhm.
This is why my guests introduce themselves, because we always get sent these very dry
Yeah.
bios by people. I'm like, oh, that's not who you are, because you're this beautiful, vibrant woman. There's all these great stories. So, I consider you to be the most amazing coach, and I'm going to use the word business coach because I know that's not what you just do, but you definitely sit in that space. And I guess I'd love to hear what inspired you to start your business as it stands now, because I know you've had lots going on behind the scenes, as we all do. But let's hear about your start into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So something, I guess, about me that's a bit different is that I have never been a business owner without being a mum. And I know 100% that that has influenced my business journey. So I started my business. I was working as a counsellor at a youth mental health organisation before I got pregnant with my daughter. And I loved working with young people and counselling them, but the system just wasn't good to me, as a lot of social workers and therapists would say.
Yes.
It's quite infuriating that the government's always, complaining that there's a lack of staff when they really just don't look after their staff. So I guess I started my business out of a need to continue doing the work that I loved, but doing it in a way that supported me as a human. I didn't know as much about myself back then as I do now. But now I know I'm a highly sensitive person, and I also know that I have ADHD. So those things, I guess, probably just meant that I'm not well placed to work in a really stressful organization. And I loved the work that I did, but I wanted to be able to do it on my terms and not be feeling so stressed and so burnt out. So I just started my private practice when my daughter Amelie was 1. So that she's 8.5 now. Also, that's crazy. So yeah, so about 7 years ago, I started my private practice. Initially just started seeing counseling clients, and then I started to become really interested in the world of business. And I hadn't really been exposed to business or entrepreneurship at all. Like, I had been a social worker. I graduated social work when I was 21. So I had been in that field of not-for-profit, government, hospital social work, all of that. And business had never been on my radar, which there is a part of me that wishes I'd thought about it in my 20s when I'd had a lot more capacity and resources. But anyway, I was really committed to social work. I think I foolishly thought that money didn't matter back then. Like, I just did it for the passion. Which is something I really encourage social workers in their 20s to not do. Money and setting yourself up financially is really important to be able to sustain the work you do. But yeah, so I started to meet lots of women in business, not just therapists, all kinds of business owners. A lot of them were mums. And what I noticed was that often their businesses were doing quite well, but they were really struggling with their inner world. There was this whole like hustle, push yourself, you've got to build your business really quickly. And then if they were mamas, they were like feeling a lot of mum guilt because they were like trying to work like they didn't have children, and they just expected so much of themselves. And also there was a lot of deep-seated self-worth stuff coming up of like, oh, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I've got to like prove my worth through my business. And so I just ended up branching out from therapy and starting to create group experiences. I love group coaching because I feel like women getting to witness themselves in each other and support each other is so healing. I know a lot of people say that like group coaching is dead, and I really don't believe that. I believe that a lot of people have been burnt in the group coaching space. They've been like sold these really these programs that are meant to be incredible, and then maybe it's not delivered. But I think when it's facilitated like really professionally, group experiences can be so powerful. So then, I moved more into coaching and mentorship. I used to run an experience called Permission Granted, which was all about women prioritizing themselves. That was I ran that I think 4 or 5 times, and it launched it right during COVID, during the pandemic. The times. Yeah, it was an interesting time to support women. So I have like gently shifted away from the psychotherapy practice and moved more into the coaching and mentoring space. And I really love supporting women in business, particularly women who are neurodivergent or highly sensitive, and they just don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to do business in that like traditional way. That kind of hustle culture.
Absolutely. And I think so many of us are attracted to running a business because we want to do something different to what our experience was in the workplace. And then we just set up our business to be the same and wonder why we're still miserable. I love that you're doing that. And is it right if we talk about your mastermind that you have going on? Because you have this beautiful slow mastermind. So I wanted to hear of it a little bit. Because I've seen Sam all over her socials talking about slowing. I'm like, what a fascinating concept, because it's the complete opposite of hustle. And I loved how you spoke into that. So do you want to share, because I know you co-host that, and do you want to tell us a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, so that I think where that came about was I have a beautiful business bestie, Jessica Miller, and she's like an incredible business strategist. And I kept finding that business owners, the thing they were struggling with so much was mindset, but they also needed the strategy support. So I said to her, why don't we like collaborate and create a mastermind where you've got the psychotherapist and the mindset support, and then you've also got the strategy. And Jess has just recently completed some nervous system training. And so she's really passionate about doing business in a way that is also taking care of your body. And so Slow it was almost like you said, it's kind of like quite a polarizing name for a mastermind, because I know people listen and they're like, they either love it or they hate it, because they're like, oh, business is meant to be fast. If you're not growing fast, then you're failing. Whereas Jess and I believe often we need to slow down to speed up. It's like getting the foundations, it's getting the core. And I guess something I really believe in is that, of course, our businesses need to nourish us and make us a good living, but always we are humans first. And that's a big part of Slow, that if something's going on in their lives, in their relationships, something outside of their business, they can still bring it into the mastermind, because I think business is personal. Like if you've got big things going on in your life and you're at the forefront of your business, then you can't, I find it very hard to separate it. It's, as someone who feels things really deeply, I need to be supported and nourished personally to be able to keep showing up for my business.
Absolutely. I actually really dislike the term work-life balance. I dislike it immensely, because it implies that there's two separate entities that show up, one for work, one for life. And everything that we do, from the tiniest little thing of a crossword with your partner just before you step into the office, everything that we do impacts each other. It's a symbiotic thing. And
Yes.
so I love the way you talk about that. And I've noticed, because I have a mastermind myself, and I've noticed that in the mastermind, the things that come up the most, because you think people are there for strategy and these specific tech skills or something, and actually they're just there to be seen and witnessed by other women to feel safe and to be themselves. And I genuinely didn't really appreciate that. And listening to your slow mastermind, I'm thinking, there's so much to be said for that idea of not embracing that hustle culture and not feeling like, I'm gunning for a 6-figure month, or all these ridiculous things that are these external measures of success.
Yes. And we've had some women in the mastermind, like everyone in the mastermind's at really different stages of their business. So some people are like building up new parts of their business, and then others have already been really financially successful. But what they need to do is now get into their lives and start living their lives and enjoying their lives and stripping back and simplifying their business. So that's something Jess is very gifted at, I think, is like really simplifying. And, one of the women in the mastermind just had like her biggest launch, and she called it a lazy launch because she did so much less than what she normally does. But obviously you have to have built like certain processes and certain reputations and relationships, I think, to be able to do that stripping back process.
Absolutely.
At the beginning, we do have to put in the groundwork, but we've also got people in Slow who are really early in the beginning of their business journey, but they said, I want to build my business sustainably from the beginning. I don't want to burn out. So I think some masterminds, I don't know how you feel about this, Sarah, but I have really mixed feelings about like, everyone in this mastermind needs to be at 6 figures or 7 figures. Like, what's been interesting about Slow is that there is such a range of places in the mastermind, but I believe that I see everyone as equal, and I believe in circular leadership, which means that whilst there might be a 7-figure business owner in there who's got so much more business experience, there's someone else in the early stages of their business, but they've got so much wisdom around something else that they can share. So I don't like this grading of people in business, like based on their earning.
I can see where it would be appropriate. Like, I know that in a 7-figure business, your challenges are unique, but I think in terms of group dynamics, it breeds some beautiful diversity when we have people at different levels of business, and because people ask me all the time, is your mastermind for a product or service-based business? And I'm like, both. Because the challenges you face mostly around mindset, and then some tech stuff, and they're often the same, whatever your business is, because we're human beings in businesses. So I like the idea of different levels of business. I like the idea of, unless you really want to have a very technical mastermind, which is all about, this is to grow your e-commerce business. Like, if that's where you want to lean into, sure. But I still reckon if you don't talk mindset, you're probably wasting everybody's time, including all your, members.
Yeah. And there needs to be I think for Slow, the common thread isn't where people are at. It's what they desire. And that is like, they want an abundant business, but they do really want to look after themselves and their well-being. And for that to be like a significant portion of the mastermind. It's just interesting. I think, I've just seen how everyone's got such different things to offer at all stages.
I love that. And I think one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was obviously a little bit about mindset, because you are definitely, and Sam didn't introduce herself as this, and I probably would have if I'd introduced her as the permission queen, because you certainly had that reputation. And I know your podcast talks in a lot to like permission. And I think that's a really hard thing for us to do as women, because we battle our upbringings and we battle our good girl, and we were discussing this before we started recording, of saying, I want people to like me and I don't want people to think I'm annoying, and all these things that we tell ourselves that run through our life, particularly as an employee, kind of okay. Once you start running your own business, you bump up against it massively, don't you?
Oh, you really do. Yeah, I have definitely been known for permission, and I guess I've kind of really hone that into being permission to be soft and successful. Like, really,
I love that. When you say, like, that's the best tagline ever.
Because I feel like there are what I realized after I ran Permission Granted for a while was like all of these women are really soft. They're really sensitive. They're often neurodivergent, like maybe just getting finding out later in life. But they need to be able to do business in a way that suits them and doesn't necessarily suit everyone else. And
Yeah.
I was seeing that they were burning out by kind of trying to do business models that worked for other people that maybe weren't as sensitive. So, but yeah, I really believe that permission, it's not about me saying to my client, I give you permission to have a rest today, like,
Yes.
because
No.
clients don't need that. But I believe when we see other women giving themselves permission, it does shift something within ourselves as well, which is why the permission work is so beautifully done in a group, in a community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I kind of see the permission as I want you to kind of learn to self-accept and those kind of things, which
Yeah.
I think, like, if someone had said to me when I started my business 13 odd years ago,
Mm.
oh, this is going to be the biggest journey into self-discovery, I'd be like, no, it's not. I'm just going to do social media and stuff. Like, I would never believe that. And then instantly you bump up against like your own money blocks and all of those things that you had no idea were even a thing. And I love that you talk about that acceptance and the kindness, because I feel like that's something that's almost lacking universally across our coaching industry, is that we talk about success, but we don't talk about compassion and kindness.
Yeah, and it's almost like you can turn anything, you could turn the most well-meaning self-care practice into punishment if you do it in a way where you're really strict with yourself. And I've seen women do it. They're like, okay, I want to take better care of myself. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to journal. And then they criticize themselves about not doing it perfectly. And what I teach my clients to do is to always be looking at everything they're doing with a lens of compassion and softening it. So, okay, if you want to do meditation, like, let's work on that. But let's remember why you're like, the reason you're doing that is to try and take care of yourself. So if you miss a day and then your inner critic comes out and starts beating yourself up, then it's kind of defeating the purpose of steadily what you were doing it for. So, and that's something I've noticed with most women in business. It's like when they are trying to do mindset work, they can be really hard on themselves about the time that it takes to change.
Oh, it's so true, because often we're high achievers as business owners, so we have all these expectations. And I think, Sam, it was really interesting you talked about you've only ever run a business as a mum, because I think one of the things that being a mother brings to life is the way in which we see our children, because we love them so much and we treat them so well and we bring so much kindness to everything that we do with them. And we were having conversation before we started recording about our children and how we approach looking after them. And yet for some reason we have that inside us to be this kind person, and we turn it on for others and we don't turn it on for ourselves. And I think, when I became a mum, I noticed, oh my gosh, I loved my baby boy when he was born, and he was like my whole world. And I remember just thinking, I want everything for this boy that I created, and the kindness and love you pour into them. And then it took me a while to realize that I didn't treat myself like that.
Yeah. And that's because we're kind of taught, that we have to be productive and we have to work hard and get things done no matter what. And we're taught at school to only celebrate the wins and when we don't celebrate the mistakes. And so I think we're so much softer with our children than we are with ourselves. And when you can look at the future generations and think about how you want to treat them and then start to turn that inwards, it's a very powerful skill.
It is. It's something I've been on a big journey with that this year, because I'm really aware that I'm very tough on myself, and I never if I could go back in time to 13 years ago and tell Sarah what we created as a business, she would be like, no, that's amazing. And yet all I do is sit and go, what next? What else? What can I be better at? And it's a horrible loop to be stuck in. So I've been really focusing this year on being more compassionate with myself.
Yeah, and celebrating the wins. Like, it sounds so small, but most of our brain is trained to find problems because that's what keeps us safe. And then when you think about the cumulative effect that has on your mind all day, if you're always thinking about the thing that you haven't done well or the thing that's going wrong, like, that can just make you feel so defeated. Whereas there'll be so many things that you can pay attention to where things have gone really well in the day. And that's the biggest thing about mindset that I would say is mindset isn't just the thoughts you're having, it's what thoughts you choose to pay attention to. Because we have like 70,000 thoughts a day. We can't control all our thoughts. I feel like a lot of people think, oh, mindset coaching is making all of your thoughts positive. I don't think that's possible. But it's like, what can I pay attention to today? Like, what did I do really well today? What was I great at? What went well? And trying to be in the present instead of being in the past.
Oh, I love that. That's such an interesting thought because,
Yeah.
again, all us overachieving female business owners that we are,
Yeah.
we constantly think, I can do this. I can nail being positive and I can do all this. And one of the biggest things that's really revealed itself to me is compassion this year because I can be really positive and then I can have moments of going, oh, you're rubbish. And then and that's not the end of the world that I've done that. I'm still a work in progress and I will forever be a work in progress. But being, like you say, being nice about, well, I didn't do my meditation today and I didn't do my journaling, but I did go for a walk and that was lovely. And trying to, those thoughts, I feel like it takes, like it's consuming a lot of my energy at the moment, my thoughts, because I'm trying to retrain myself and it's not easy because I've really happily established patterns of crappy behavior to myself. And it's really, really interesting that you talk about this idea of how we can turn anything into a punishment. And I never thought about that because it's really, really true with everything that we do is that I'm trying to be better and I'm trying to be more compassionate, but I didn't go to that class because I didn't feel like it. And so then I'm a bad failure.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of in therapy, we talk about it as like meta thought. So we have the thought and then it's almost like imagine you're like floating in a cloud above the thought and you're observing it. And that, for me, that's the power. It's actually applying compassion to what's happening in your mind as it's happening rather than being so critical. It's like the compassion and the curiosity, like getting really curious about, well, okay, well, I didn't do meditation today. What was going on for me? Like, and being that like curious coach rather than that like inner critic that just likes to dominate all of our lives.
I know it's a subtle shift, isn't it? But it's an important shift because I think a lot of us are not even consciously aware of doing these beautiful, well-established patterns of behavior and thoughts. They're so happy in doing their thing constantly. And it's like I said, I feel like at the moment I'm spending a lot of energy trying to retrain those thoughts. So I'm like, it was easier to just let them wallow in their meanness. And now I'm trying to pick them up and go, no, that's not like it's a lot, isn't it? And it takes a lot of effort to redo this training.
Yeah, and I will give you a tip if you're open to it.
Oh, I definitely.
There's two schools of thought with thought work, right? One is that if you have a negative thought, you should try and change it. But there is some research that certain negative thoughts for certain people just don't go away. They're just there. And then what you can do instead is to observe it and accept it. So you could be like, oh, hello, there's that thought I'm having again, that I'm lazy or whatever the thought is. I often have that lazy thought because of my ADHD. And then you can just choose to lovingly witness it and let it pass you by, but you don't have to like fixate on it. And so I often experiment. Some of my clients want to do the thought work where they change the thoughts, and some of them want to do the thought work where they accept the thoughts. And, both are equally valid. But sometimes if you've been challenging the same thought, your whole life, sometimes it just is so stuck that it starts to frustrate you. And so to just skip that process and just go, oh yeah, that's that story I have every Monday morning, hello story. I'm just going to observe you, but I'm not going to kind of like let you be in charge. This is where one of the skills that my clients love a lot is follow the plan, not the mood. Because also, I think with mindset, sometimes we think we have to be thinking positively to do the thing we want to do. But you can have a negative thought. Like, let's say I thought before this podcast, oh no, I'm no good at podcasts. I shouldn't do it. Like that's not, I'm just using that as an example. I'm pretty confident on podcasts. But when I first started, I wasn't. But you can have that thought, absorb it, observe it and go, yeah, thanks brain for trying to keep me safe, but I'm still going to do the podcast anyway. And I think this is where people get so stuck because they think they have to have their mindset perfect to take the action. But taking the action can actually change the thoughts as well.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. So if you're really scared to do something and you're having lots of negative thoughts, it's okay to still do the action because then that's when you'll get the results and you'll go, oh, okay, I had a really negative prediction about this, but that actually went better than I thought.
And I love that processing. And I was sharing with Sam for all the listeners before we had a very long conversation before we hit record. I know it's not appropriate for my podcast, but anyway, one of the things we did talk about was the idea that we are going to be successful and that everything's going to be okay, and we have to kind of push through. What am I trying to say? I think that we definitely fixate on positive mindset is going to get you places, and actually you can just do it anyway. And I've had a lot of people on my podcast who've never been a podcast guest before, and they're always so terrified. And my job is to try and get them relaxed so that we can have a lovely conversation. But I'm always fascinated at the end, because some people will not come on my podcast even though I think they'd be brilliant. And then people that do go, oh, I loved it, I'm so glad I did that. And they stepped through it even though you can see that they're scared. And that's a really hard thing to do as a human being, is to kind of, okay, I'm scared, but I really want to do this, because pushing through that is really, really hard. And I love that you've talked about that you can just do it anyway, because that I try and convince people of that, but it's really hard to see it if you've never felt that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's not like it's not an easy thing to just step through fear. But I think not getting trapped in this idea that all our thoughts have to be positive before we take action is really empowering. Because, we just can't control all of our thoughts. And I think there's a lot of toxic positivity that goes into the coaching space as well, of you have to be positive all the time to be successful. And I just don't really think that's true. It's okay.
Oh, it hasn't fake.
Exactly. So it's almost like a bit of perfection. I think we have to be careful, if we are high achieving, that we don't become perfectionistic in our mindset work.
Oh, I love that. I feel like you're speaking to me. I feel a bit seen, because I'm definitely I'm all in brilliance and all kind of girl. And so working on my mindset has been it is probably, I have been probably being a little bit turning into a punishment. I definitely feel like you felt like we just had a coaching session to the lovely listeners.
I mean, and I always share this stuff based on my experience, based on my clients' experiences. So I think it's really normal kind of thing. But I think facing our fears is something that we do in business every day. Yeah. And we have to be kind and gentle. As we push ourselves, as we jump and we plunge into those scary things, we can still do it with so much love and compassion.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I feel like for all of our listeners, as you always know, I could talk for hours and hours, and I'm trying to keep my time for you busy people in your cars or whatever it is that you're doing. So for everyone who's listening, please know in the show notes, there'll be all the ways in which you can connect with Sam, including a link to her podcast that I actually really love and enjoy and would really recommend you check out, because podcasts are a mixed bag and hers is a goodie.
So that means so much coming from you.
Oh, I think because sometimes you listen to podcasts and I don't get, what did I just waste an hour listening to that for? I feel like I always walk away with, well, like you have today, given us lots of great actionable steps and ideas. So, Sam, I'm glad we finally made a date and had you on my podcast. Thank you so much. I know you're a very busy lady with lots going on in your life. So thank you for giving your time so generously to come on and be a guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, life is full, but this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I'm really, really happy to have been here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. And to all my lovely listeners, thank you for tuning in. As I said, all the links to connect with Sam on her socials, you can check out when her, I think you'll have a wait list for your mastermind, if that's the thing. Yep.
Yeah. Yes, we do. And also I really, social media, I've got such mixed feelings about it. That's probably a whole another podcast. But my favorite thing to do is connect in DM. So if you listen and you want to send me a message just with a reflection or a thought or a question or just a hey, I would love that. And I always actually welcome voice messages too, because to me that's like the human part of social media that is what keeps me on Instagram.
I know. Sam and I were joking about how we have a lot of synergies. I'm a voice DM girl every day. I love them. I think they're a really nice way to actually connect, and people know that it's you and not a bot as well, which I love. So
yes.
Yes. All right. My lovely listeners, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you have enjoyed listening to Sam as much as I have enjoyed chatting to her. And as always, I will catch you the same time next week on The Social Circus. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Social Circus. As your host, Sarah Thompson, I am thrilled that you've chosen to spend your time hanging out with me. I would be so grateful if you could spare an extra moment to go and leave me a review on your favourite podcasting platform. And if you even felt more excited, you could share my podcast with your friends who you think would get great value from it. Thanks so much again for tuning in.